the major, I mean, the RMRs had the most viewership of any RMR ever, I think, right?
I saw that stat as well. Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Even though the seeding is
I think that
god
there
awful.
is something to say about the amount of Brazilian representation at the RMRs this time. We all know that Gaules gets 100K on every Brazilian game ever, which is great for viewership, but it could be the reason why viewership is so high. I'm just saying.
But he's
because,
always been doing that.
But he always has been. But there was a lot more Brazilian teams succeeding this major, which would mean more games, which would mean more average, higher viewership.
Let me look up the RMR because someone posted this, the RMR viewership.
I bet it has it broken down, but that would just be my first guess, would be
viewership comparison. It doesn't say.
I will say that there probably is also a lot of interest in Donk. I know the Spirit games were getting up there. There's just a lot of interest in Pro CS at the highest level right now going into CS2.
Yeah, the top 5 games in the RMR, none of them have Spirit and none of them have any Brazilians.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, well maybe CS2 is just in a good spot right now.
Yeah. The top 5 are wild. It seems like CIS viewership. It's 9 Pandas versus Gamer Legion, 9 Pandas versus Stralis.
9 Pandas,
Guild Eagles versus Bet Boom, Gamer Legion versus Fnatic, Gamer Legion versus Guild Eagles.
What?
Oh, is that just from Europe? Maybe that's the European RMR. Okay. But I mean, even for the European RMR, that's still
those are not the matches I was expecting at all. A lot of Gamer Legion and 9 Pandas.
It must just be CIS viewership.
Yeah.
I mean, generally the Brazilian games do garner a lot of viewership, so I'm sure they're up there.
And that's great for the scene, for sure.
Yeah.
But either way, you know what sucks about the RMR is it doesn't even matter how well you do in the RMR because it does not translate to where you get placed when you make it to the major.
Okay, so yeah, this is me and Austin were talking about this before the podcast. It's very confusing.
It does not make a lot of sense.
If we look at the page, you're going to see that the elimination stage. So basically the way that the major works is you essentially have kind of 2 semi-group stages. You have the opening stage, which is basically a group stage, and then you have the elimination stage. So you get out of the group stage into another group
part
stage.
2. Yeah.
Yeah, but some teams get seeded directly into the elimination stage, but it's not the teams that went 3-0. You would think it was, but it's not.
It's based off of Valve ranking, which is very confusing at first glance, but the more you look at it, the more it all kind of makes sense. So, for example, at the European RMR, RMR-B, the second one, Mouse and Cloud9 both went 3-0, and they never played a tiebreaker to decide anything. But for some reason, Mouse gets to move on to the just actual No, not the elimination stage. Oh, is it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. They get to move on to the elimination stage,
or whatever,
which would be top 16 guaranteed. And Cloud9 get to start in the opening stage, which makes no sense because they both went 3-0. But when you look at the Valve rankings, Mouse is ranked higher than them by a considerable amount. So that's why they get to go up, but Cloud9 gets to stay down.
Well, the one that's the most confusing is Complexity went 3-1.
Yes, and then Furia went 3-0 in the same RMR, and Furia gets put in the opening stage, but Complexity gets put in the elimination stage. And that's because Complexity is ranked higher on the Valve rankings for America, and there has to be one American team at the... You understand? It doesn't make a lot of sense. That's what we're getting at.
I mean, it makes sense in terms of like if they're both went 3-0, it makes sense. But if one went 3-1, one went 3-0,
or let's say even one goes 3-2, I mean that could have happened as well. Like just barely scraping in, and you still get to get guaranteed top 16 at the major. That seems kind of
Here's the problem: we analyze all these changes independently as if they don't go together, but they do go together. One of the things people are complaining a lot about is MR12 in best of ones.
Right, which is very, very bad. I gotta be honest, MR12. The best of ones are very, very hard. They allow for quite a few upsets. And I will say, because of that, it does make sense that the Valve ranking would decide the seeding going into the major, because you don't want a team to go 3-2 and then get a bad seed at the next stage just because they lost a couple of unlucky best of ones in MR12. That does make sense. I can't lie.
You also have a lot of other problems with the seeding. So one of the other issues is that, like, because the Valve rankings weren't updated prior to the RMR, you had Liquid, which was clearly not the worst team at the Americas RMR, that was seeded as the worst team at the RMR. So they had, like, Complexity actually played a lot of strong teams. But something Solgoat mentioned, and I just saw the Reddit thread a little while ago.
I saw that.
Because the Swiss system was cut off halfway, because in NA you had to win 3 matches, but you would be out if you only lost 2. If the higher seed won every game, you would still end up in the 2-1 decider matches with number 3 versus number 5 and number 7 versus number 8, which doesn't make a lot of sense. There seems to be
No.
a lot of really nonsense shit that happens in these, but I do feel like in their defense that doing it seems unfair, and I could see some Brazilians complaining about this reasonably, I feel like. But if we're gonna have best of ones, which maybe we shouldn't have in MR12, it feels to me like it's probably better to have it as like, if you got through, you got through, you're treated the same. To me.
I don't really like how they did the Americas RMR. I get it that they don't have as many spots for us here because we're not as good, but it just doesn't make sense to.
Oh yeah, you don't like that not as good impacts your placings?
No, I don't like the route to.
You have a moral
problem with that. The route to qualify seems super like not thought out. Like again with the Swiss system being cut off, they're like, oh, it seems easy. We only need 5 teams. It's like, yeah, but then now like it doesn't actually work that way. Like you're gonna allow for more. I don't want like. Not the favorites to make it through. Like,
so you agree when Cadian said that he doesn't think the best teams got through?
I do agree, but I don't think that Liquid not making it through is an example of that. I don't think they were going to make it through anyway. They weren't looking that good.
I mean, they went to 3 maps and made it pretty close against Complexity while losing all 6 pistols.
They lost all 6 pistols?
They lost all 6 pistols.
That is brutal in MR12. That's that's well, maybe. I didn't watch the game. I do agree, though.
They looked bad in the pistols. It's not like Complexity got lucky. Of several times, Liquid had, in theory, the better threat. Like, they had a stack and Complexity walked into it and they lost. So at some point, just be fucking better at the game, cuz. But, like, to some extent, if we think that pistols are random, which I think in CS2 seems to be more the case than I was thinking at the end of CSGO, but if they are random, then there's an argument to be made.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I don't know. I'd have to look at more of who made it through and who didn't, or rather, who didn't make it through and who did, to really say I think Gideon's right. But at a surface level, I'd say probably, because I mean, it just makes sense given the format.
All right, are you thinking that best of ones should be
removed? Yeah.
But I saw a pretty good argument. I'm gonna hit you with this argument, because it made a lot of sense.
Before we get to that, though, I will say best of ones for an opening match are fine. I don't want to have because if you do this worked in CSGO. There were some formats that had best of one opening matches, like best seed plays the worst seed and so on, next best, whatever, to get like an early seeding for the best of 3s. I think that's fine. But anything that's important, like more than one best of one in a tournament,
I gotta lower my.
It's too many important best of ones. I'll keep going anyway. It's too many important best of ones. And best of ones can sometimes just be upset. So like, think about this. In the RMR, you have 2 best of ones guaranteed, right? In the European RMR, if you lose both best of ones to something out of your control, like you lose both pistols in the first gun round, you're already down almost. What is that, 8-0 with losing both pistols in both first gun, or is it 10-0?
Bro, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking.
It's all good. Anyway, you're losing so many rounds. It's easy to lose a best of one in CS2. It really is. Even to a team that's like, let's say the number 1 team plays the number 10th team in the world. Like, it's not just an outright write-off that the number 10 team will just lose, because best of ones, they have a real chance.
Okay, I actually do have to ask you. Everyone's complaining about CS. Are we just in like a bubble, or is CS actually doing really well?
I think CS is doing well. CS was always going to do well. Like, it died because most of the people who are hardcore fans like got a little weird about it and went away, but the casual players that aren't in the bubble don't give a fuck. They're just going to play anyway.
They are missing a lot of stuff. We're missing Danger Zone.
We are missing a lot of stuff. But things have been slowly getting.
Arms Race just got introduced.
Yeah, right? That's a big one. Arms Race is actually very popular. But also community servers are starting to get back. Like KZ is back, Surf is back. Like, you can still find these things, and people who played them in CS:GO know how to find them in CS2. So it seems like
1v1 servers yet?
I don't know.
I wanted to look for it earlier. I was like, you know what? I got called bad by a Faceit 5 today. I think I might need to work on my 1v1 aim dueling abilities.
Well, either way, the game is in a really good spot going into the first major of CS2. I mean, like, hitting the all-time player base record and then the majors next week is a good sign for the game. It's
Have you seen
almost
the
never
Reddit
been
thread
better.
about it though? Have
No,
you seen the Reddit
I
thread?
haven't. I haven't.
I only saw the player number records were getting broken because Jesus he tweeted that Reddit was having a meltdown because according to Reddit, CS is completely fucking dead, and it's like it's something has to be done. And in the middle of December, or even the end of December, it was like if you posted anything positive, you were getting completely shit on.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, a lot of people are saying it's bots, but I feel like CS always has bots. Like that's probably not a
But
real
the
issue.
top comment says, "Shh, the game is dead. Mod, please remove this post."
There's a lot of negative comments though as well.
Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, I think that CS has done a pretty good job at getting people to play. I mean, the weekly drops is a good way to start. A guaranteed drop every, what is it, Tuesday? You know, I think that's a step in the right direction. To be fair, it seems like a lot of people are coming out and saying that they're not getting cheated against either. So I think that this is one of those things where every time somebody gets a cheater, they're very outspoken about it. Even if it only happens like once a day or once every other day, you're gonna like speak about it because the negativity of I'm getting cheated on is way more like present in your mind than all of the other games where you just lose fair and square. You know,
It's actually kind of interesting because I think there's actually a big divide. It feels like there is. Like I don't get a lot of cheaters in my games, but I do believe that I believe some of the people that respond to me that there are a lot of cheaters in their games, but I mean the divide has to be based on trust factor.
I think so. And I think streamers typically have a lower trust factor just by nature of what they do. I mean, they play every day and they're going to just get reported. It's just how it goes. And so I feel like streamers are streaming into cheating lobbies because of that. I feel like the people who are complaining about the game being bad most likely have low trust factor just because they're probably toxic, blaming their teammates every time they lose. I tend to agree with you.
I believe that I've seen the message before that if you launch Face It and you launch CS, you open your game in insecure mode.
That's true.
That would probably fucking tank your trust factor.
Yes.
That would turning that on and off.
Which is why people who play Face It and then go back to play Valve matchmaking are going to complain about more cheaters because just by nature of the way that you play the game, you are playing with low trust factor, which is where you're going to get the new accounts, which is where you're going to get cheaters. People who only play matchmaking can play all day and barely ever run into cheaters because they're going to have higher trust factor typically, and therefore...
Actually... Oh my god, I've actually discovered from my own games because I was creeping up on 25k and I was like, I'm just gonna get red real quick and then I'll just only play Face It. And then I started playing some Face It because I was like, well, if I play Face It, then I'll be better and then I can get 25k whatever, no problem.
And then you started getting cheated on.
And then I came back to a 15 game losing streak. There was a suspect person in every game, but I don't typically call cheats. It's just it's annoying once they are suspect.
Yeah.
I dropped down to 18k. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. I'm fucking playing MGEs now.
I know that I and another one of my friends have a second account that we play matchmaking on every once in a while. Yeah. And that account has never touched Face It. And I could not tell you the last time that I've ran into a cheater on my second account. Genuinely. I don't think I ever do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
His second account should also lower your trust factor.
But they don't know. And I'm not saying anything about who the other person is because they probably don't want that to be known either.
Yeah, but I mean
and I know what you're saying, right? But the point is that those second accounts never play Face It, which means they're never in insecure, which means they're never in low trust factor.
Interesting. Yeah.
It could just be the case that the people who play Face It or that are more dedicated to grinding the game are going to run into cheaters just because they do have the insecure thing on. Or if you stream, you have to launch in insecure mode.
Well, technically, Austin,
if you play native,
it's actually the other thing I'm getting annoyed by because the people said this all the time. Technically, allow third-party software doesn't lower your trust factor.
It used to give you a pop-up in CSGO that said that it would,
but it doesn't lower your trust factor. If you don't have that, it increases your trust factor, which is basically fucking idiot speak for it lowers your trust factor. But somehow people are caught on this that technically it doesn't. It just raises your trust factor if you have it off. Oh, fucking thank you. It's the same fucking thing. Oy, yeah. Okay, anyways, when you took MR15 and you took away the insta reset, you lowered the randomness. MR12 is probably not any more random than MR15 with no reset. So we've basically just brought ourselves back to where CS was originally.
Which is bad.
But nobody really complained about it.
Like the original CS, CSGO economy?
CSGO original economy, yeah. And people seem to not like, if I remember, they didn't like the change.
They didn't like the change at first because it allows for way more gun rounds, but that's a good thing, isn't it?
There's arguments against whether more gun rounds helps the underdog win more. I would like to look at the statistics for it.
But wouldn't you want to like have more gun rounds just for the game itself? Like you want it to be more competitive. So gun rounds, you want them as a
Yeah, that's good for CS.
as
yeah.
a player.
But does it make the underdog win more? Is the question.
No, I don't see why. Like,
Well,
what decides an underdog? If you can't close out a bunch of gun rounds versus another team, then are you really the favorite? Like, I don't know. I feel like gun rounds are where CS is at its best.
yeah. Okay. So let's say you have a team you know for a fact is worse. It's just like we just take. We're just gonna say we have a team that is better and a team that is worse, and we're not. One of the teams isn't Brazilian, so there's no arguing about it. Okay.
All right.
Okay?
All right.
So there's no argument there. One of the teams is worse, and one of the teams is better. Okay. And so the team that's better is most likely to be winning, which means they're most likely to have guns, which means
They're most likely winning the gun rounds.
they're probably gonna win more. Okay, the actual argument, it's hard to like remember exactly because this was like took a long time to flesh out exactly why this made sense. Because initially it doesn't seem to make any fucking sense, and now I'm like, bro, this doesn't make sense. But I'm like, I know somewhere along the line it makes sense, bro. Trust me.
I'm buying in.
I don't know if we can get there though.
I want my money back though.
Gun rounds themselves are in itself random, and there is no such thing as like 100% win rate, right? You might just get countered, whatever. If your team is not just like spin botting, the other team can win. So if you add more gun rounds, that means you add more chance for the worst team to get into the game. And when it comes to T side, especially if the T side has more chances to break the CT economy, which is basically always possible if you win one fucking round, you're giving them more chances to break the CT economy. And then you're giving them more chances to get a lucky gun round win that transitions into a bunch of round wins in a row. And then they have a good half, and then you don't necessarily have the same thing on your other side. Come back to this next episode, okay? Because this doesn't make any sense, and I know in my own head that this is like not making a lot of sense, but I know there's a way that this makes sense.
All right, so all that's to say, I don't agree with the point. I know what you're trying to say.
I agree that I don't agree.
I know what you're getting at. I kind of connected the dots, okay? Even though you didn't really make it easy. I don't think that makes MR12 better or not as bad or equal to...
The argument against MR12 being that bad is that we had CS like this for fucking 18 years, and now we have essentially the same thing, and it's like, do we have a right to complain about it? I think probably yes, but it was a pretty compelling argument. I mean, MR12 probably isn't worse than MR15 with hard resets was.
That's true. Like in hindsight, MR15 with hard resets was terrible. I felt like that made it really easy to lose, even as a better team. Because you could lose the pistol, you could lose the first gun round. Okay, we got a good gun round, we won it, then we got hard reset, and it's like, now we're down 7-1. Like, I remember those days. I played those days. That was miserable. And then you're just like, well, we're down 7-1, we go for another gun round, and we won it. All right, then we lost the next round again. It's like, now we're down 10-2. It's like, you can't get anything going. But you would argue the better team should just win, but I disagree, because I feel like there's still too many things that could happen that would really make it easy to get snowballed against.
Yeah, it definitely was easy to get snowballed against. So, okay. So I made a tier list that we can refer to for the tier list for the major, where we think who's like the S tier teams that are like probably like going through and which ones aren't.
For the opening stage?
Before that, no, for the whole major.
Okay.
But before that, Wilson said in his video, because he made a video about why Inferno sucks in CS2.
Yeah.
And he made a pretty reasonable point, I thought, that MR12 might have made Inferno a lot worse. Because it's very tough to retake pretty much either bomb site. A on Inferno, I believe, was the hardest site, the lowest win % site in the game in terms of ability to retake.
Before B site does too, right?
Yeah, it was B site Dust 2 and then A Inferno, I think. Or they were like right next to each other.
Yeah.
It's fucking impossible.
They're hard.
So, and not only that, but it's always generally been that like once you're back on the site as CTs, you can get exec'd on and lose the round pretty reasonably easily. So you have to do some gamble stacks. And when you have MR12 and you have a very limited number of gun rounds, the gamble stacks, when they go wrong, they hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So, and especially because you can make less adjustments mid-game, and it feels like, do we go for banana control, or do we go down mid, or do we go for like apartments control, was always a coin flip in itself.
Yes, but now
Like,
if you lose, it hurts even worse.
yeah. So like the gambles are larger and more impactful.
Exactly, and now they've moved the spawns up for the T's so that the T's take no gambles and the CTs get to take more. Like the T's don't have to take gambles anymore on banana control or anything that the T's want to do. They can do every round, and the CTs have to still gamble, which makes it worse. And on top of that, they made holding the map control a lot harder. You said it yourself a second ago that holding A site executes used to be miserable, even in CSGO. And we had the pit one way, the site one way, the fucking moto one way, the apps one way, the lane one way. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even back when we used to have all of that, it was still hard to hold A site. And now they nerfed the pit. There's nowhere to go. Mini
it
pit,
is so bad now.
Pit's so bad. Balcony's so bad. Mini pit's too like small to even hide in. Site is spammable for some fucking reason. You can't hide back default anymore. Like they just nerfed the entire site, made it harder to hold, and said you can't save anymore because that's MR12. Good luck, guys.
Okay.
It's like what the fuck are you supposed to do?
Let me hit you with one thing, because this is kind of what I feel like a decent number of maps, but Inferno especially. Inferno always felt to me like a map, other than Cache, I think it was my highest win rate map. It felt like a map where I could generally just position myself well and pre-aim well on T side and use good utility and trade with teammates. And I can minimize how much it mattered that my aim was shit.
Right. Because that was a map where if you were a better player and knew more fundamentally, you would pretty much always have an advantage over your opponent.
Now it's the opposite.
Exactly.
Now it feels the exact opposite. Like it's basically all the angles are like they're all shit. So you have to just play an angle as a CT especially that's like I'm holding an angle and well I have to shoot better than them. Really, there's like not, like a lot of them.
And falling back to site is worse than ever because every angle on both sites is bad. They nerfed new box. Coffin is very committed to say the least. You can't even really hide in dark cubby anymore. Oranges is what even is it anymore? Second oranges is also a death trap. You can't boost because there's like, you're just gonna get smoked anyway. Like there's nowhere to actually play on B site. A site, same problem. It just seems to me like they made it a lot harder to actually play as a CT. It's like you get two T sides and one of them is a lot easier than the other.
Yeah.
Because like think about it, the CTs are taking alt mid. That was something that like never really happened in CSGO. It did happen, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. Like now we have instant smokes to smoke bottom mid so we can fight alt because it's the only chance we have to actually have anything.
I don't know. If it was MR15, would Inferno be much better or just every map would be better?
No, I don't think Inferno is changed by MR12 at all. I don't agree with that argument other than the fact that gamble stacks hurt more, but they always...
I mean, if it's a map that requires more gambles, and gamble stacks hurt more when you're wrong. But that would necessarily make it better.
I don't think that switching it back to MR15 would make Inferno feel better, even on CT side. I think that the map is just flawed the way that it plays, and even though it is a riskier map to play on CT side, you have to make those gambles. Even if they miss, I don't think that you're feeling like, man, I wish I had more rounds. You're probably thinking like, man, I wish this map wasn't in the game. This map sucks. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
I just don't understand why they removed CSGO Inferno. I loaded up CSGO Inferno, the most recent version before CS2 came out. You can load it up in CS2 if you download it on the workshop, and it plays fine. All of the new utility works fantastic. There's nothing that you can't throw that you could in CSGO. The only thing that doesn't work is the lane Molotov from balcony. That's the only thing that doesn't work. You can't bounce it over because there's no skybox anymore. You can still Molotov new box from top car. It's possible. You can bounce it off the roof with grenade camera. I figured it out in 2 seconds. Like everything still existed. It didn't need to be changed. It played fine.
Listen, Austin, while in this case, you're right, somewhat. I hate this argument. This is the CS player argument that is like the argument that there is no counter argument. This is the brick wall argument. This is like you are now in a castle that is undefeatable. Okay? Because yes, they could have not changed it. But they could have not changed anything ever in CS forever. And we would be playing CSGO in 2015. And the game, you wouldn't want it. I have to say, people think that they want to play CSGO like the 2015 CSGO forever. You would fucking hate it because it would get so fucking stale and boring. That's the whole argument against Mirage, is that it's stale and boring because it's stale because we played it forever. Changes have to happen.
I agree 100% with you.
They need to be quicker changing shit back is like what I would argue.
I don't mind them overhauling Inferno. In theory, it's fine. But you took something that was probably deemed as the best map in CSGO, which I think was widely agreed upon, at least at the higher level.
would disagree with you.
Yeah, a lot of people would disagree, but I think
Well, I mean, Nuke was
generally,
coming up, but yeah, we'll give
Nuke
it,
and Inferno. We'll just say Inferno, like at the top level, was agreed upon to be one of the best maps. You took a winning formula and then just changed everything about it. Like everything is different. So they started probably with Inferno. They're like, okay, well, with no skyboxes, Inferno's going to be broken because they had originally added the skyboxes to remove cross-map nades. That was one of the things that they did with the newest, like the most recent version. So they're like, okay, we have to figure out a way to make it not broken. Let's make all the buildings tall. And then they did that and they were like, well, let's just call it good. Like, what other problems existed? Yeah, Pit was OP. All right, nerf it to shit. What else was really, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they worked with things that they didn't like in CSGO, and then they ended up just with a map that people don't like anymore. I love when they make changes to the map and changes to the map pool, and I love overhauled maps, but it just sucks to see a map that went from really good to really shit so fast.
Part of the problem is it feels like Valve has always felt like a student that's like, God damn it, I had an analogy for this. I remember it. I can't remember it though. Anyways, they'll make small changes and then the small changes will do nothing. And then they'll just be like, fuck it, change everything. And then they'll change everything at once. This is like what they did with the Krieg, where they like made one small nerf and it changed nothing. I think they made it $100 more expensive, changed nothing. And then the next patch is like, the Krieg deleted from the game. Like, you're never going to use that shit again. It's like
what they did with the A1S as well. Like, they originally did a small buff to it. It did nothing. Or they lowered the price of it, right? They lowered the price and then nobody used it. And then they're like, fuck it, make it overpowered as fuck. See what happens.
And then
I agree with you. I agree.
And the problem is they don't come back to change it again until forever. Like they could do this and they could just be like, well, we're going to change everything and we're going to see what we're going to look at the data and see what works.
Give it a week, 2 weeks, a month even, but they wait like 6 months to make a change. And then when they make a change, it's not enough. Like, well, they re-released Inferno almost 6 months ago, right? Almost, maybe a little over 6 months now. It was in September. Yeah.
Okay.
So this new version of Inferno, since release, has been complained about for 6 months, and so far the only change that they've made that I can remember that's noteworthy is removing the balcony railing that was really bad on release, the one that you had to jump out. That change happened pretty quick, but that's the only change that they've made. Now they removed a bench and made
you want them to make changes before the RMR?
Before the RMR? What? They did it anyway. They changed the spawns. It completely changed how every map plays. Fuck. They did it anyway. Yeah, I do want them to.
I mean, is the solution to make more changes? I feel like
fuck it. I mean, they already did. They just completely changed how every map plays. What's the difference if they change a couple of props around on Inferno to make it a little better?
Listen, 2 wrongs don't make a right, Austin. Okay. That's
what
all I'm saying.
What the hell are you saying?
Two wrongs, I mean, seriously.
I know what you mean.
No, I mean, unironically, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I think changing the spawns was this close to the major was probably a mistake. But at the same time, I don't think that justifies them also changing Inferno drastically. And I think at the beginning, when we were saying September, that was the very beginning of CS2. People didn't know what the fuck they were doing yet. I give them credit for giving some time.
I give them a little.
And I give them credit for the RMR. But if they don't change it right after the major,
exactly. That's it.
It's a problem.
I 100% agree with you. I was getting to that. If it's been 6 months and they've made some small tweaks, which is how they do the Valve method, they make some small changes, and when it eventually doesn't get picked in this major, like ever, except for randomly in the major final, it'll get randomly picked as 3rd map and it'll be a classic, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Whenever that happens, as soon as we're going to get out of the major, boom, it's either going to get removed from the game or they're just going to completely change it. And mark my words. Either Inferno is removed from the game after the major, or it is significantly changed.
Yeah. The last thing on this is Mahone said in Wilson's video as well that new Inferno feels a lot less intuitive, and I actually think that might be one of the biggest problems of it, is that it does feel a lot less intuitive. The buildings being in the way are fucked. The fact that you have to know like these overpowered smokes from spawn, it feels like otherwise you just have way less like ability to do anything.
I agree.
It's less intuitive does seem to encapsulate it.
Yeah, because I know that like that's some of the problem that newer players have is learning lineups. And now it's like to throw anything on Inferno, you have to aim at a shingle on the roof, and each lineup is different, and they're all lineups like that. Like stand in this spot, aim at this exact spot, aim really high in the air and jump throw. Do you know how to do that? No, you need a buy-in for that, don't you? Oh, maybe not. I don't it's not an intuitive map. Like I know a lot of people don't play it just because it's overwhelming. If you're learning or if you're new to the game, if I tell you, all right, you're gonna sit here and hold this angle and then you die every round, you're like, how does this work? On T side, all right, you're gonna stand here, aim really high in the sky and throw a smoke. What? What are we playing? I'd rather go play Mirage. Fuck yeah, you're right. Me too, man. I would rather go play Mirage. What are we doing here? I think that makes a lot of sense. It is not very intuitive.
All right, we'll do the tier list.
All right.
Can I find where the tier list is? Because I had to make it. This is all the teams the major.
Yes.
Okay, A tier should be like outside chance of winning.
Yeah, like Dark Horse.
Dark Horse, yeah.
Dark Horse, Deep Run.
B tier should be playoffs maybe. C tier is like
2,
trash,
3.
and F tier is double trash.
Yeah. All right. Well, how do you want to start? Do you want to go in order of the way they're here, or do you want to go top to bottom or bottom to top?
I think we go top to bottom.
All right. Let's start. I got my first pick for a realistic chance of winning the major. I got 2 teams I want to put there right away.
Yeah,
First is FaZe.
We already know. Yeah.
And the next one is Vitality. Yep. There's very clearly these are the 2 best teams going into the major.
Spirit's got to be.
Spirit's up there. I was getting there.
They're not even a dark horse.
They're not a dark horse.
If Spirit won the major,
I was saying there's
there's
two clear picks for who should be up there, and then there's a third choice for Spirit. But realistically, that third choice is Donk. We're picking Donk to win the major, not Spirit. So of course, FaZe, one of the better looking teams coming into the major. They've historically always done well at majors. They did, have Frozen added in. They haven't had that much time with them yet, but again, whenever we've seen them, they look convincing. They lost a final of, Katowice to Spirit. Still looked pretty good in that. Vitality, they have Zywoo, always going to be really good. Put them up in the realistic chance. They've also been playing very good. And of course, Spirit, new kids on the block. Donk is firing everybody. If they don't do well at this major, it would be a tragedy.
Yeah, I think Spirit, having just gotten through in the Blast group pretty convincingly without Donk necessarily carrying every game. There was plenty of games where like Zontix or Shiro were doing really fucking well.
Yeah.
They've got to be in the realistic chance of winning category.
100%. I will say I don't think they're the favorite. I don't think Spirit are going to win the major. I would more likely give that to Vitality as like the number 1 favorite. I think FaZe is second. I think Spirit's third.
All right.
Yeah, as much of a FaZe fan as I am, it's hard to say I think FaZe is outright winning the major. Even though I want to really bad, I still think Vitality is looking better coming into the major than FaZe is.
All right. I'll give you that. I would probably put FaZe above Vitality, but I also might even put Spirit at the top. Here's the problem. The only reason I don't want to put Spirit at the top is because they're like less experienced in theory.
I don't think that really matters. The reason I would like stray away from putting them as the hard favorites is it's still too early to outright pick them to win a major. I feel like they look good. I got to give it to them. Like they do look really, really good, but I don't know if picking them to win the major is, I don't know if they have it in them. If I'm
betting on a team, if they all tomorrow all played each other in best of 3s, like if we could just magically, like if we could like use like a simulation to get them all to play each other in best of 3s tomorrow, I'm picking Spirit to win straight up.
Yeah.
But at the end of the week, I mean, it's like a week of the opening stage and then another week of it's like,
granted, none of these teams are playing the opening stage either.
Yeah, one of the things about a team like FaZe or Vitality is that they keep it up long term, right? Like you have faith because you know that they're not gonna fall off or they're not gonna get figured out in some way that just like destroys them, right? And you don't know that necessarily about a new team, especially one that is looked at as like potentially the favorites for a tournament.
Yeah,
they're gonna be getting studied pretty hard.
I would love to just come in here and say like, yeah, they're the favorites, they're looking the best, but the truth is that exactly what you said is right. Like we can rely on Vitality and FaZe to be pretty consistent. We don't know if Spirit are going to fluctuate. Like we don't know, they might come out cold this tournament. It's hard to say. Like they could go 0-3. They won't, but they could, and we don't know until we see them play. This is just one of those
things. If anyone's
going
to go 0-3, it's FaZe that could go 0-3.
Tell me about it. I've seen it before, twice.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even the major they won, they were 1-2, right? Or 0-2, weren't they? When they
something like that. Yeah,
beginning.
Yeah, they didn't look that convincing. Yeah. What I was gonna say though is that it also would probably help, especially this newer team, to play through the opening stage to kind of warm up into the major environment and everything. I feel like they would probably benefit a lot more. And just jumping right into top 16, I feel like is a little scary. But of course, I still think that they have a really good chance of winning the major.
All right, dark horses. I'm gonna talk.
I-
I'm leaving someone out. I'm gonna leave someone out.
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna-
put
I'm
them in
gonna
here. You
leave-
tell me what you think.
I'm gonna leave someone out too. Oh, that's not who I was gonna leave out.
Wait. I gotta think about VP's current form.
Mm-hmm.
I think VP's in there. Maybe Navi. I think this is my 4. That's my 4. Yeah. I'm leaving out Cloud9. They burned me too many times.
I was gonna say I was leaving out. I was gonna leave out G2. I don't know
That's
if
fair.
I don't think G2 is a dark horse. I think they 100% make playoffs, but I don't know if they win the major. Like
100% make playoffs. Nico's been playing pretty bad. Actually,
yeah,
you're
exactly.
right.
I don't think
we're
G2 is a
deranking
dark
G2.
horse. I don't know if they have it in them right now. I would love to be proven wrong. You know, it's always exciting to watch Nico and Hunter play. You know, in the major, but at the current standings, I'd be hard pressed to put them in the dark horse category. I will say Navi, dark horse, 100%. They always could. This heroic team isn't the worst. I don't know if I would give them dark horse.
It's confusing how good they're doing. They're beating everybody, dude. Who have they even lost to?
I don't know. Hold on, I'm about to go pull up their rankings. I'm actually
They are doing unbelievably good for the fact that they just lost like their 3 best players.
Yeah, let's see. Recent matches, they got 2-0'd by OG. They 2-0'd NIP and I think killed the team off of that. And they got 2-0'd by Spirit and they lost 13-3 to Vitality.
Oh god. Oh my god. Have they been doing a lot worse than I
They
thought?
got 2-0'd by G2, lost a map to Gamer Legion in a best of 3.
Okay, I just fucking completely
I was gonna say
how good Heroic was. I thought they were so much better.
I was gonna say when you put Heroic up there, I was like, I don't think so.
Maybe I'm just remembering like their first bunch of matches. Like, didn't they beat a lot of really good fucking teams when they like?
Yeah, it looks like they had some decent results when they first formed.
All right. They okay. At least
they're definitely playoffs. They're definitely playoffs, maybe, but I don't think they're dark horse.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I would say, to be honest, I would still put Cloud9 in the dark horse category. It's hard to really see a world where they don't come out swinging in this major. This the player potential on all of them, or the pop off potential of a team like this is just too high to ignore.
So, I'm gonna have to look at this. But last major, they were doing real shit, like exceptionally shit. Mm-hmm. They showed up to the major, fucking 3-0, bang bang, bang boom.
I mean, like the results coming into here, the RMR they 2-1 Vitality. They beat Apex and Para, but who cares about that? They did lose to Saw just 2 days ago.
Yeah,
which Saw has been tearing everybody up, by the way. But yeah, they 2-1 VP, 2-1 Bet Boom. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Cloud9 is definitely up there in a dark horse. I think that's fair.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I almost want to put them like below G2.
I mean, just because I agree, but at the same time, I just feel like
if they're saving strats for the major, like if they're like gearing up for the major, like it seemed like they might have been doing last time, because it seemed like they started to turn up. They shit the bed just before the major. They were looking really extra shit. And then they showed up to the major and 3-0'd when I think I saw people with them as 0-3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe. So maybe but if I like knew for sure that they were like taking every tournament beforehand super seriously, then I'd probably put them below G2 or maybe along with G2.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually I'm also thinking for another team I want to put in the dark horse category. I want to put Mouse there. I think that this could be
Mouse.
This could be
really
Mouse's Mouse's chance to prove something, and they're looking really good coming into the major. They're another team that I think could do very good, very very good.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. How are you ranking these in the tier though?
I would say
I feel like Mouse might be above. I feel like
I would put Mouse first, actually.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
And then probably VP, Navi, Cloud9. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's about right.
That's fair enough.
I think that's a fair list. I think.
Okay, just to fill up the double trash category. Let's just put in a bunch
okay. All right. Nah.
I think we can fill out the rest of this.
We're gonna have to have an argument here because
I'm just gonna fill out the rest of this real.
Buddy, I don't know how much you've been watching recently, but I don't think any of these are good choices.
There you go. That's my.
Did you just go off of their logos?
I honestly forgot what.
You haven't watched any of the RMR.
No, I've actually watched a surprising amount of the RMR. Where
Okay.
are you? What's your problem here?
Let's go with this. So to finish off the list, let's at least do playoffs and then the trash.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Okay. We'll put them all back down.
Yeah. All right. Let's. All right. Playoffs. Complexity. Are you serious? Why would you put them in the double trash category? Do you really see a world where complexity goes 0-3? I don't.
Did you see the world where they barely
back.
beat Liquid after going 6-0 in pistols,
Right,
and then Liquid went to Blast and shit the bed in historic fashion with Cadian triple re-peaking pistols, and then fucking Yakindar whiffing in the most ridiculous way, and then they get fucking wrecked by Halser?
Yeah, but that's a Liquid problem, though. I did see that.
Yeah, but that's a team they barely beat.
It doesn't matter. I think Complexity is a team that is a playoffs maybe. Then we're not picking them to make it out of the group stage outright. I think it's fair to say Complexity has a good chance to make it to playoffs. They won't make it any farther than that. They'll make it quarters, and that's it if they make it. You know what I mean? I think that's a fair shout. I think Furia is playoffs maybe.
I think NA teams typically, I mean, I haven't researched this, but in my memory, NA teams typically are the worst in terms of ability to upset. I feel like NA teams rarely do a lot of upsets.
You're right.
I would rather put a CIS team, even one of the worst teams that are theoretically worse than Complexity, like half the teams on this list, I would probably put them in the playoffs before Complexity, because I feel like Complexity has, in theory, maybe the ability to make playoffs, but I think in reality, they're just worse than almost any team that'll make playoffs, and then they potentially can get upset by somebody. But I think more likely one of these other teams is more likely to upset someone and then put them against Complexity in like the 2-2 match, and Complexity loses to like a Navi or VP or Mouse.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why they're in the maybe category.
Yeah.
I think there's a world they do. I think there's a world they don't. It's kind of a coin flip for me. I mean, there's also a world they go 0-3. There's a world they win the major. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. We'll just see how they play. Next team for playoffs, maybe. Let's put Saw. I think Saw's on a hot streak right now.
I think that's a fair one.
They're on a hot streak. They look really good, surprising everybody, turning a lot of heads. I think they can. I like
their coach. What's their coach again? What's their coach?
Let me look. It is how do you pronounce this? Nabawao.
That's not the coach I thought it was. I think they used to have a coach that I'm thinking of. Maybe. I'm like I can't go off this page because it's what I'm streaming. So it's.
Is it Arky?
No, I'm just.
Well, those are the only two coaches that they've had. So, well, it is what it is.
I'm probably thinking of maybe. Fuck, am I thinking of Saw the player? Wasn't there a player named Saw? I can't. I'll fucking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, they're on a hot streak. They look really good. If you've been watching Blast, they've also consistently performed against teams way better than them on paper. So
who did they beat at Blast?
They beat Cloud9. Hold on, I just looked at this. They
Cloud9's kind of suck.
Yeah, but we put them in the dark horse category. They 2-0 Liquid, but they 2-0 Cloud9.
We put them in the dark horse category.
True. You're right. Yeah. They 2-0'd OG. They 2-0'd Monty. They 2-0'd Fnatic. They 2-0'd NIP. Yeah. I mean, they have some good results. Like, again, I don't see them going farther than playoffs, but if they can make it, that'd be a big dub for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the teams that I could see making playoffs before I could see Complexity making playoffs. Like, I would have Complexity in groups.
That's fair. I would accept that. I really would, because it's hard. I see a world where they make it. I see a world where they just get out of groups, Groups, by the way, would just be the next stage, right? That's what we think. And then, like, the double trash category is removed in the... Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then that's fine. I'll accept that. ENCE, I want to put ENCE in playoffs, maybe. I think there's a world.
I think that's another team that, like, I could see them much more than Complexity. I feel like they could go 0-3 and they could definitely make playoffs.
Yeah. Agreed.
Glaive is the second best IGL of all time.
That is true. It's always going to be hard to write off a team with Glaive.
Zeus, but
it's going to be hard to write off a team that has Glaive on it, even though we like to meme a little bit about the IGL argument. He is still really good at what he does.
Yeah.
Two more teams I want to put in the playoffs, maybe. Apex and Eternal Fire. Those are two teams I think have
we really should have split this into opening stage and the other stage.
Yeah, we definitely should have. Yeah. Apex and Eternal Fire would make it to playoffs, I think. Those. Yep. And then
Apex and Eternal Fire maybe playoffs. All right.
I see a world where all of these teams make playoffs, but realistically, like, what's going to happen is only one of them's going to make it. And that's just that.
Eternal Fire perma lets me down, man.
Yeah,
every time.
Yeah, but I don't know. I want to believe.
They have so much talent. It's hard to not believe, but yet they just permanently, whenever it looks like they're about to do something good, they just win one game to give your fans false hope. Like that seems to be Eternal Fire. Like in a nutshell.
Yep, I agree with you. Well, that's pretty much it. I feel like everybody else has about no potential.
One of these CIS teams is definitely like gonna sneak in playoffs. Is what
I wanted
happens.
to put 9 Pandas. I want to say 9 Pandas really bad, but I feel like then we have too many teams that are maybe making playoffs.
Yeah.
Maybe okay. You know what? To be fair, let's replace Eternal Fire with 9 Pandas then.
Okay.
Because I think this is more realistic anyway.
I think Furia shouldn't be in there.
I'm not gonna argue about it too much.
This is what my list would be. What we have right here, I think that's a pretty fair list. Apex, I don't know. I'd probably have them in groups.
I think Apex is really good.
Yeah, they've shown a lot of good stuff, but I'm still not.
Let's look at their recent results really quick. I feel like Apex is a team that consistently can make playoffs in a major because they did it last major. Well, let's see.
I feel like as long as I mean, if it's playoffs, maybe it makes sense. But I hate people that overload the middle tier.
You're right.
I don't have Apex making playoffs in like my.
Honestly, their recent results would also suggest that they're probably not looking that good. I kind of overestimated.
They replaced Stico. But now they're using
the only team that they had to beat to make it was a Static. They 2-1 to Static and then had 2 best-of-1 wins versus like Monty and OG, which are good, but they lost to Cloud9, and then they beat a Static, who did qualify as well. But like, what does that even mean? Yeah, okay, everything else. You're right. Yeah, this is a groups team for sure.
All right, but you have complexity playoffs. Maybe I have them groups.
Yeah, I still think so, but yeah, we'll see. Everybody else. Yeah, I mean, that's just the list fills itself out at this point, doesn't it? So I couldn't really see a world where these 8 teams, I would say it's very fair to assume that they're not going to make it to the next stage. The last 8 teams that we have are all in the opening stage. I think these are the 8 teams that won't make it through. I'm pretty certain that they won't make it to the next stage.
What other teams should we put in the not going to go 0-3 category? Because I feel like this is an underrated category that people really need to care about.
The fuck your pick'ems, category.
Historically, even though typically the Asian qualifier teams
always get picked to go 0-3,
they always get picked to go through 0-3, but they almost universally, I believe there's one major where they went actually 0-3. It's always like, I'm sorry to everybody, but it's always a team like Imperial or Pain. Pain has looked, I remember Pain for a couple majors, they looked like they could be really fucking good. They looked really fucking good, and then they just bombed out 0-3.
Yeah.
Those are the types of teams that typically go 0-3. Not the team that you're thinking, because they're underdogs, I guess, maybe. They're also underrated, typically.
I'm gonna say I think Imperial is not gonna go 0-3. I think that they're going to get a win because looking at the way that this RMR will play, or this opening stage will play out, they're probably going to end up playing one of the other teams that are below them, and they'll beat them. Put Omcal and not going 0-3 either. That's the they're
I would put
that's a team.
Is this team's name again?
Legacy.
I'd put them and not going 0-3 before Imperial.
I think they're both not going 0-3.
Well, just because Cold Zera's showing up, man.
I think this is the list.
You think Ecstatic's going 0-3? Aren't they Danish?
Yeah. It's hard.
Is a Danish team really going 0-3?
No, they're really not. I think Pain is going 0-3 100%. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love those guys. I've played against them many times. They're going 0-3. They're like the only teams that they lost to, they barely made it through the Americas RMR. The only teams they lost to were Legacy and Imperial. So it's like, and not even like that. They got destroyed by both of those teams. The only teams they beat are teams that didn't qualify. So it's like,
it's probably gonna be Pain now.
It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough.
Yeah.
I think Pain is gonna go 0-3. I think Koi might get a win if they play Pain, but more than likely they go 0-3. Ecstatic is a really good team. It feels bad. I was gonna say I think Legacy go 0-3. That's a decent.
You'd have them there.
I would have. It's hard.
Before
I
Cold
want
Zero putting up some vintage performances.
Yes, that's the thing though. If Cold Zero plays like that, then they might make it to the next stage. That's what I'm saying. It's like I have faith in Cold Zero as an individual, but I don't know about the people surrounding him.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I think you put Lin Vision as getting a win, and you also put the Mongols as getting a win. But I would almost argue,
off of historic precedent.
going off of historic precedent, who cares about that? Because that doesn't really mean anything.
It's always one of the Brazilian teams that goes 0-3, or one of the NA teams. Complexity might go 0-3. I can see Complexity going 0-3.
I can see it too. It's very tough. I would say I think Mongols 0-3 pick is very fair, and then you could put Legacy up or a Static up. But I think that we need to have 3 teams that are 0-3 likely. We can't have 4, with the Static being one of them. Because I don't think that they're gonna go 0-3. In good faith, I can't see it.
I'm gonna be completely honest. Mongols and Lin Vision, I know one of them is actually surprisingly good, but I can't look at the rosters right now.
That's
so
the
I'm
one.
just
Lin Vision. Lin Vision is the roster. Yeah, yeah. They're the one that has Starry and.
All right. Yeah. So we'll put Mongols in. I don't know.
This is the list. Yeah, I think this is pretty accurate. A pretty accurate assessment heading into the major. I feel like this is about what you expect from all these teams.
All right, fair enough.
0-3 likely.
Yeah, I think you have Complexity and Furia in playoffs maybe.
Yeah, you added a new group for groups, which made me feel a little better. But yeah, this is
no, it's always been there. I added this extra not going 0-3 one.
Yeah,
groups one it was just named differently. It was just trash and double trash.
Yeah, it's realistic. Like the problem is that I feel like in hindsight, looking at this list, I would much rather put 9 Pandas and Saw in groups and not into playoffs maybe, because I don't think they can make playoffs. Yeah. And yeah, I think this is probably
That's your list?
This is my list, yeah.
Okay, my list is this, except I'm doing the opposite.
Yeah, in 9 Pandas. Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to think about it more. One of these teams is going up here.
You were going to put FaZe first as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either 9 Pandas or Furia. I would have to look a little bit more in depth which one.
The Furia roster is.
Yeah.
I mean, Furia has Fallen on it though. Fallen always turns up for majors, you know.
Is that true?
No.
I'm fact checking you live on air.
Hey, it's not true. Okay, I'm just trying to story tell, which is something that analysts do way too much.
Oh, you know something kind of funny though. Okay, if you look up the HLTV celebrity leaderboard, the worst people in the fantasy are all the analysts. Pimp is at the bottom. Pimp is last, 31 out of 31. Then you've got Get Right, then Flom, who both haven't played all the games, then Moses, then Machine, then Maui Snake, Alan Hender. That's not a lot of cultural impact from Maui Snake. That's all I'm saying.
Either way, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with the list that we made. I think those are pretty good. I think that's about right. Do you want to do thoughts on opening matches as well, and then call it there?
Yeah, sure. What are the opening matches again?
Hold on, I'm pulling them up right now. First round matches start with Cloud9 as Static. I think that's a pretty easy pick for Cloud9, right?
Yeah.
Then Eternal Fire Mongols. Probably Eternal Fire.
Yeah.
Imperial Ents is probably an Ents victory.
Yeah.
Apex in Pain is Apex 100%.
There's is there any of these that's really a toss-up? Maybe Furia versus Legacy?
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Lin Vision versus Heroic will probably be way closer than it should be, but I still think Heroic is going to win. 9 Pandas versus Amcal is a very interesting match in terms of both of these teams. I almost want to say 9 Pandas should just win, but at the same time, I kind of feel like Amcal's not that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That one's a toss-up. What are chat's opinions on this? 9 Pandas versus Amcal.
They did beat 9 Pandas last time they played.
They did.
I mean, it was close, but they did get the dub.
I honestly feel like this is an Amcal victory, but I still think 9 Pandas is the better team at the major. I don't know. I feel like for this head-to-head matchup, I want to pick Amcal instead of 9 Pandas, but I still think that they'll make it farther. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're ever doing fantasy, one of the things that I feel like you have to do is you have to go through the opening matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the times, if you just take the most likely teams to win or lose, you're going to end up seeing that the two teams that, like, I've seen this a couple of times before, where it's like, it's almost a certainty that these two teams that are like the most likely 0-3 teams play each other at 0-2. And it's like, well, even though this other team, I think it might be worse, I think they win the head to head. I put them 0-3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do have to consider that type of thing.
Yep.
Um, and with the opening matchups also, which is like if you have a team that's a regional matchup, like Legacy versus Furia or Nine, I wouldn't put either of them really 0-3, but Nine Pandas versus Amcal.
Yeah, like that
Those are
could
kind of toss ups. Yeah.
exactly. I think this is a toss-up match. They play each other a lot. I think Cal probably can win this game. I think they probably will win this game. I think Nine Pandas will come out, better after it's all said and done. But I still think they're gonna win.
Fair enough.
Saw versus Koi. I don't even know who's on the roster for Koi. Sorry, I don't think I've seen a single of their games. Okay, this is the Mopaz Davy G team.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a Saw victory, let's be honest. And then, of course, Legacy versus Furia. This one just depends on if Cold Zero is playing the game or not, basically, right? I mean, because realistically, it's Fallen versus Cold. It's gonna be a classic for CS2. It could be the last time we see both of them at a major ever, which would be kind of sad. I don't know. That one's genuinely a toss up. I don't know who's a better team. It's gonna be the Brazilian bash, and I feel like both teams are gonna show up to play. It's gonna be a good game.
The problem is, I feel like there's a very high chance that Legacy win that.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right, and I also think it's still a coin flip regardless.
Yeah,
it's a tough match. It's a tough match to decide. Like, again, because you have to consider the fact that Furia is a better team. Like, outright, I feel like it's hard to say they're not the better team, but as far as like how they play against each other and how they stack up head to head, I don't know. I actually have no idea.
One of the things you have to keep in mind is that the lower ranked team is almost always going to take the first round matchup more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're expecting like you're fighting for playoffs, then you're probably thinking of the teams that you're going to be fighting for playoffs. Whereas if you're thinking a little bit more of like, let's win every game we can, then you're probably over preparing for the first team that you're going to play. I feel like that's why a lot of the time you see the 0-3 expected 0-3 team, the obvious 0-3 team doesn't go 0-3 because they're like, we need to like focus on these teams that like we can get a win off of, I don't know, maybe they're not necessarily like the team they're playing against is looking past them.
Yeah, I'm looking at the last time that they had a head to head. It was in CSGO, so doesn't really matter. But it was
Cold Zero wasn't doing
very close, and when all three maps all very close, and Cold Zero did not perform. Yeah, he went 0.85 rating. But this was, of course, 6 months ago, so it's irrelevant. And it was also in CSGO, so it's irrelevant. But point being, they still play each other very close. So
we should have done an opening stage version of this tier list.
I still think I think I'm gonna pick Legacy to win this, even though Furia is a better team. This is another situation like Amcal 9 Pandas. I think Legacy will win. I think Amcal will win, but I still think that 9 Pandas and Furia will both go farther. That's about it.
Yep.
I think that's like a pretty realistic. We can continue playing out this fantasy, but I don't really see a reason to. It's going to get kind of dank pretty quick. But I will say that the odds are definitely stacking up in favor of us getting our 0-3 picks very early on here. As you can see, this is pretty much.
Yeah. All right, let's end this with Patreon questions. Why has the meta shifted from Mirage Inferno to Ancient Anubis? Anubis is bad. It's the most broken map in the pool, and it makes CS2 feel like CS prehistoric offensive.
Anubis is bad?
That is a banger of a joke. CS prehistoric offensive. But I don't think I think Anubis is a pretty solid map. But this lines up with the second question from the same guy, which is, I got a lot of shit for my take on MR12. He doesn't like CT side economy, and the room for exciting and risky plays at the top level is like nerfed because of MR12 instead of MR15. Which I think those two go together pretty clearly in that Anubis feels like a pretty gambly map. You have to do weird
You
shit on
know,
CT side.
You know what's funny is Anubis feels like CSGO Inferno does at the highest level.
You think so? All right.
I think it's very clear if you look at how Anubis has, played out. It's taking the place of that map. Every team plays it. It's almost always a decider.
Oh, you
map.
mean in terms of like the play? Yeah, okay.
It makes like CT side is about the same. You have to be a good CT coordinated team to be good at it. T side kind of plays itself, just like old Inferno. Seems to me like it's coming into its own, and I don't think that makes it a boring map. I think it's
wouldn't say it plays like CS Inferno though.
Not,
it feels a lot more aim heavy than
100%. Oh, 100%. But I mean, like stylistically, teams are kind of playing it the same way, and big picture, it's the same idea. But of course, the map plays very different. It's a lot more aim reliant. You got to be good at the game because there's lots of elevation changes. Very different than Inferno as a map, but the the big thing is it all does play very similarly.
I can definitely see how if you think the CT economy is fucked and you have less room for, because we've talked about this on the podcast before, it feels like you lose one gun round and it's already like, how can we fix that problem? And then you look at Anubis where it feels like sometimes you lose a gun round because you lost a duel in E-Box and that lost you the round, right? And so it definitely does feel like Anubis can be kind of fucked, but I still like it as a map, and I think because it's so T-sided, it feels like the ability to come back from that is like perfectly reasonable. It's not like, it doesn't feel as snowbally, because if it was closer to even, I feel like it would feel like it could snowball really hard, really quick. But
it's an example of unbalanced map in a balanced way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I actually really like, even though I'm honestly terrible at that map, but I really like it.
It's not like old Nuke. Well, I guess it's not like that, like where you're getting 15-0, CT halves. Any T round is a guaranteed dub. It's not like that. It's more like both. You can always expect to have a good T side, which makes a really good CT side all the more impactful.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I like the way that.
Okay,
that
the
plays.
final question actually. Because we spent most of the last podcast, or we had like this whole dedicated episode. By the way, it is up on our Patreon right now. I just haven't released it on YouTube yet. Talking about the spawns. Huge change. You were very not loving it. Now that you've played it for a bit,
just terrible.
How you feeling? You still hate them just as much?
Yeah, I mean every game I'm very aware of the new timings, and it's just not really fun.
There's been no like shifts at all. You haven't.
Vertigo is miserable.
Oh, I thought this was gonna be terrible.
Vertigo has gone to my immediate permaban. I don't want to play it anymore because I play A, and it's just I don't want to play that. Like you're not. It's not the same fights, and I have no pro games to go off of. So it's not like the answers are out there. The answers don't exist, and the T's are just running up ramp, and you can't just play retake every round because then the map just becomes too T-sided, and so I'm not enjoying that change. The Anubis change turned out to be a non-factor. It didn't change anything. It still plays fine. And the Inferno change, I do play the map more now. I think it makes it a little bit easier on T side.
Is that because you're playing Vertigo less, or you like the map?
It's because I'm playing Vertigo less. I think this is an example of them doing one last thing to try to make Vertigo spicy, but they fucked it. It's over. I can no longer be a Vertigo defender at this rate. There's no redeeming qualities anymore. The map itself was perfectly fine before. Now it's terrible. They made it a rush simulator, and I don't like that. Let me think of the other maps that were changed. Mirage, non-factor. Again, the back spawns removed in T-spawn doesn't really make a difference. CT side always having a better spawn makes it a little bit more fun to play. You don't even think about it that much on T side. It's not broken. Good change. Well, Nuke, non-factor. CT spawns are just consistently good. Needed to be like that forever as far as I'm concerned. So that was a good change. What are the other? Oh, Overpass. Terrible. Oh my God. They've ruined Overpass. Yeah, you can't, and again, I'm assuming that Overpass will heal and recover around this new. It's not like Vertigo where it's just chalked. I think Overpass will shift and people will accept it eventually. But playing Overpass, what's your favorite pick to go for on Overpass? Think of one. You're opping CT side. What are you going for?
I can't do that anymore. Yeah.
The answer is you can't do it anymore, regardless of what you pick. Not possible. Can't go for the connector pick. They're already up the stairs by the time you get there. Not very fun. Can't go for a fountain pick because you're already dying. Can't go for a monster pick because they could beat you there very consistently. Like no more short walks, none of that. Like all of the early op plays, nerfed. All of the early rifler plays, nerfed. Which isn't a bad thing. It's been a T-sided map, or a CT-sided map, I should say, for a long time. The CTs get way too much control of a huge-ass map. It's a good change. it's not fun to play yet. But I think that the pros will make it, the new meta will shift and Overpass will end up being in a good spot long term.
Yeah.
I don't mind those changes. And that's about it. I think that nothing else has changed, right? Are we missing one?
I think you listed them all. Yeah. Okay. Dude, I have so much in this notepad. We can do a bit for like a Patreon bonus, even though we only have a couple patrons.
Yeah. What is it? Patreon.com/Voostin?
Yeah.
Just saying. It's in the chat. You can go sub to the Patreon for more content if you enjoy.
Yeah, you could watch this. You could watch this content that you're watching now, except behind a paywall.